Fast Nerdly Podcast presents The Film Travelers.
Hey everybody, this is John with Passion Nerdly, and we are going to be doing our year in review, which
We've never done this before.
No,
I like
we've never
how he
done
calls
this.
it our year in review, as though perhaps we've done this before, and this is a new thing.
Yeah.
Or are
Now-
you just owning it? I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off.
I'm owning it.
I'm going to sass you over this box that's in between us.
Please do. Please do.
Okay.
You got to make up for the fact that Sam is not with us today.
I know, so I have to be extra catty.
Yeah, so
Wow.
obviously I am joined today by my wonderful wife, Roxy.
That's me.
And we also have a special guest today at the table. Joining us is our producer.
Executive producer.
Executive producer, Overlord. What's this title from the Star Trek Con?
Lord Commander.
There you go. Lord Commander Matt Quiett.
Hey, guys.
Catty Matty.
Yeah.
So
That's yes, Caddy. Please don't let that stick. That would be terrible. I don't ever want to hear that
Just
again.
on this show.
I'm not mad. I just don't want to hear
Just on this show. It'll only come from me.
now, if you join us for more sessions of this show, then we'll drop that. How's that sound?
it. Wow, that's a threat.
It is a
That
threat.
is a threat. If you don't, or else.
Yeah, or you're going to hear this every time Roxy sees you. That's
I'll
how
have
she's
to-
going to greet you.
Guess I'll have to trek all the way down here to the Satan's taint.
Is that what-
It's hot. I've been
It
telling
is.
people it's as hot as Satan's taint.
Yeah,
There you
that
go.
is that was at least at one point like a super hot beef jerky. It was one of the YouTube
Wow.
eating shows that I used to watch, Reckless Eating, years ago. They have a video on YouTube where they try Satan's taint, and I'm pretty sure it sent somebody to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
It was that hot.
Oh, that
Jeez.
sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things I will not try.
Hey, do it for the
Satan's
views.
taint. No. I'm out.
I'm out.
But so the reason I wanted to do this show, honestly, was when we first started as podcasters, we met Matt at GenCon.
Yep.
We went to GenCon and went to a panel where we talked about getting into podcasting, sat down with Matt and also Rob Southgate afterwards at this great little restaurant. And so GenCon has almost become like an annual way we look at things. Like it's GenCon to GenCon for us with podcasting. And here we are. We're on our second or third year. Second year?
This is my third year going.
Yeah, but for podcasting, this is our second year.
Yeah.
So-
yeah, that's true. Sorry.
Yeah. So our second year, and I was like, why not talk about what all's been going on in, gaming?
Yeah.
Kind of a year review as we go to Gen Con and our year starts over for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So I just want to toss out that we're going to not be talking about two certain topics on the show today, and that is we're going to go we're just going to drop completely topics of the OSR racism issues that are going on, the RPG sex scandals and abuse scandals that have happened. I am not going to take this show and use someone's trauma to try and get views or other things. That is not my interest at all. So we're going to go beyond that. We're leaving that in the dust. We're going to respect the victims, and we're going to also kind of follow suit with Wizards of the Coast, who have struck these people's names from their books. These, if they don't exist to them, we're dropping it too. So,
Yep.
all right.
Fair enough.
But so one of the topics I wanted to bring up, like the big moves this year, has been Modifius.
Honestly, Modifius. So Modifius is one of the first podcasts that we did 6 years ago. Holy cow! Is that right?
Yeah.
7
Yeah.
years. 7 years ago. 2012. Because in 2011 we started the website for reviews, which doesn't exist anymore. We're really good at that. But 2012 we did one of our first Kickstarters for Octung Cthulhu, which was the first thing Modifius was putting out. We had Chris Birch on. He talked about all the stuff that he wanted to do with it. It all sounded fantastic. Backed it right away. I've loved everything in Octung. Modifius has a style that is very apparent in their books.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Fantasy Flight has a style in their rule books. They're not perfect.
No.
But they were very true to what they were trying to do. And I think that we, between then and even before the things we're going to talk about went to Modifius, they've been growing in leaps and bounds. The Star Trek license
Oh, yeah.
was pretty huge considering they're what I would consider a very, very small company.
Yes.
And even before that, they had Conan and
Well, yeah, the Conan
a couple
Age, Don't
others.
Dream of.
Yeah.
They've got the John Carter title. I
yeah,
mean,
they did Mutant Chronicles,
Yeah.
which was. It doesn't sound that big of a deal, but it is much bigger a deal in the UK. So.
Oh yeah. Now, when we talk about book style, like the layout, the design, the look of the books for Modiphius, I do want to say that just about every major RPG company is trying to move away from the look and the feel of Dungeons & Dragons. You're not going to have the player's guide, DM's guide, a monster manual.
Yeah.
And a lot of groups are doing that. Like if you look at the Star Wars books from Fantasy Flight, exact same thing where they're really trying hard not to be just like somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can appreciate that. But this year with Modiphius, I mean, this going down the list. So White Wolf had their big issue, and the company essentially was subsumed or consumed by Modiphius for all the issues that they were having. A lot of Edge Boy kind of stuff. Yeah. And I think that's great. Modiphius...
White Wolf has been a very troubled thing for a very long time. It's very dark storytelling, and it's not something that there are other dark storytellings that can be laughed off pretty easily and made a little bit lighter through gameplay. If you take White Wolf at its core, it's designed to not be, and that makes it really rough. And there are some fine lines that have to be drawn with their storytelling that is really difficult. And I've seen it in LARPs, where those fine lines are not drawn well, and they just don't. The people telling the story don't seem to get it, and I think that Modiphius is going to be able to handle that a lot better.
I do too. The fandom is so divided. The LARP community is so divided. You have LARPers who role-play World of Darkness just for the opportunity to do period dressing, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And then you also have LARPers who like the violent and darker side of everything.
Yeah.
To an extent that it really isn't good for public consumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so White Wolf went to Modiphius. Now, Seventh Seas with John Wick is also now under Modiphius, which I do want to say, personally, a huge thank you to Modiphius for bringing on John Wick Presents and taking over the Kickstarter. I love John Wick. He is a wonderful human being. I got to work for him his first year at GenCon with the new Seventh Seas. I was one of his GMs for his tables. And I got to meet him and talk to him, and he is an absolutely wonderful human being. And it really kind of broke my heart to see that the Kickstarter was having trouble. So Modiphius coming in and fixing that and taking it over, I just cannot applaud them enough for that.
Yeah. Modiphius has been really good with their Kickstarters. They learned a lot on the Octung Cthulhu one. A lot.
Yeah.
But they fulfilled everything. Every single bit of it, all of it's very pretty. I'll give them a lot of credit for that. It may have taken them a while, but it came out looking really good. So I haven't had a problem with that. Watching them pick up all the stuff that they are getting a hold of is very interesting to see them grow in leaps and bounds faster than stuff like
oh man,
Cubicle Games is
Cubicle 7.
Cubicle 7. There, I knew there was a 7. I wanted to put it in front. Like they have a lot of licensed stuff too, but they haven't grown like this. And I think that they still make quality product.
Yeah.
But Modiphius, I think Chris Birch is very hungry and likes to do different projects, and they've finally organized themselves over the last couple of years to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
and they are becoming a distributor. That's like the big thing. They have a line that a lot of people don't have, and that's why City of Mist is now under Modiphius for distribution. They are their own thing still, but they're using Modiphius's lines. Cult Divinity Lost, which is a RPG that I backed, and it is. I think of it as more dark than White Wolf stuff.
Yeah.
But
we haven't let you look through that book yet.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
But it is, at the same time, for the general release. I have the private release that company did. For the general release that is going to go to bookstores and everything else, Modiphius actually made them change the book and made them do new artwork. Because they're just like, this is too far.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, again, Modiphius knows what they're doing when it comes to getting things out. But Tales from the Loop is also now being distributed from Modiphius. And Unity, which is a small Kickstarter that I backed, is also now going out through Modiphius. So it blows my mind. This company is becoming a big contender alongside Paizo. In my opinion, this company, because of their location and their ability to distribute, is getting up there.
Yeah, well, and they've got Fallout in the minis game, and I think they just announced the Fallout role-playing game.
Yes.
The board game is actually not them. That's a separate company.
Oh, they just distribute it.
And same thing with Infinity the
Yes,
Infinity
Corvus
Bells, Infinity stuff like that. Like they're putting that out. They did a small game called Cogs, Cakes, and Sword Sticks, which has a small happy place in my heart because it's designed to be played in a tea house by non-gamers. You don't need anything except a cube. It doesn't have to have numbers on it. So essentially a D6, but if you don't have that, you can figure it out with a sugar cube.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So they've got a lot going on, and everything that I've experienced them putting out. I'm not a fan of Mutant Chronicles. It's just not in my wheelhouse.
No.
Same thing. John Carter, I'm interested in, but I don't know enough about the backstory to be excited about it. But I haven't seen those, but the things I've seen have been really solid.
Yeah. John Carter and a lot of, I'm not trying to knock it. Because the thing is that, and I'm just going to say this. John Carter and a lot of the other like 70s, 80s beefcake fantasy sci-fi.
Yeah.
It kind of fulfills a little place in fetishism. I'll be honest.
Sure.
And I have no problem with it. Fet life for all those people out there that do it. You know, whatever. But it's not for me. John Carter is just not my cup of tea. But it is for a lot of people. And there are people who there's a reason the movie got made not that long ago.
Yeah.
So.
And then bombed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's
a different generation. I mean, like, I was loosely aware of John Carter of Mars, but like Amanda, who's been on some of our other shows, her dad kind of raised her on John Carter of Mars and the Princess of Mars and all that stuff. And so it would be, so she knows the books. And so to someone who doesn't realize that it's something else and that it's just I think it speaks to people who are familiar with the material. I don't think, I didn't see the movie, but what would really draw you to it? Who was John Carter? It wasn't Jason Momoa, was it?
No, I don't remember.
Somebody else.
Somebody else that's pretty with long hair.
Yeah.
There you go.
Somebody else pretty with long hair. That's exactly who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Modiphius is doing a great deal of things with what they've got. There was a time when I was concerned they were growing too fast and getting too big for their britches. That's
reasonable, too.
But then they reorganized very thoroughly, and I think Chris took up not a step back, but maybe a step up to more of an overview instead of a directly involved position. And the stuff they're doing for Star Trek is a little slower than I would like, and they keep promising things that they aren't matching exactly in production dates.
Yeah.
But the quality of the books are pretty solid, and I feel really good about them. They just released Alpha Quadrant. I got a review copy for that. I haven't fully gone through the whole thing, but it is pretty solid for what I'm seeing, and offers a lot of other options. It's just going to keep being like this. So
next topic, Xenogeddon is what I'm calling it. So for about a good month or two there, we had everybody and their mother putting out zines.
Was that the beginning of this year? Well,
yeah.
Kickstarter ran Zine Quest.
Yes.
Which was specifically, I think, a month or a couple months where they encouraged anybody and everybody to start uploading or starting Kickstarters for their own zines. So we actually got a few.
Yeah. And
we backed a few because, they were like $5.
Yeah. That makes it a whole lot easier.
It makes it a whole lot. One of them we went in a little higher because it's a game system and they're essentially using the zine to get their rule set out to people. So we backed that one at a little higher because we're a fan of the system and we really want to get our hands on it.
Yeah, and shout out to Champions of the Earth.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was a really good idea. It just kind of coincided with that, and I look forward to getting that. I've heard that it's coming.
Yeah. Yep, they at the same time are going on a hiatus. Which,
well, they've made this hiatus an intentional one.
Yes.
This unintentional hiatus, the official one.
I applaud them because honestly, they put a lot of effort and work into the production of their shows.
They really do, yeah.
And I think it's time that they take a little break for themselves, a little vacation, and come back stronger because they are amazing.
But a lot of other companies did zines. Adventure a Week, who I've done some layout for, they are doing, and they're continuing the zine thing.
Yeah.
They did Mini Dungeon Monthly. So that's something that they're putting out. And I think they're up to 5 now. So we also got one. I picked one up about Crumbs. I don't remember what it was about now. I think it was RPG design and layout.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I would pay $5 for a zine for that. Just to see what somebody who's done, I do that, but I always like to see what other people are doing and their thoughts on it.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, yeah, zines kind of became a thing, and it was nice because of how zines were integral to the origins of RPGs or the early days of RPGs.
Well, that and I, to be honest, it does my my garage band musician's heart. I have a lot of love for the zine because that was how a lot of bands and a lot of people got their name out there. Was you make up your little zine out of 8x12 paper and you fold it in half and you drop it off in music stores and hopefully somebody picks it up and thinks you're cool.
Yeah.
Well, and that's how Rob Southgate started in podcasting.
Oh, okay.
He and Martha were in the zine zone. In the zine zone. In the zine scene. That's even better.
Scene, there you go.
Dude, I had no idea. But so touching on that really quick, because right now I haven't seen as many coming out, and so I kind of like putting it as this period thing. Let's see what happens. Maybe next year we'll see some more hits.
Well, and I think podcasts leaked a lot into that niche market, and so it's a very interesting change.
Yeah.
No matter what they are, they're not going to be what they were.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, true. A lot more production is going into these, and sometimes a little bit less, but
yeah, I mean, it's going to be. They're definitely going to be different, but I also think that that's because they're just better tools at our disposal. You don't just have to copy and paste. Yeah. Or not copy and paste, but literally cut and paste your text onto a zine format.
Right.
Yeah. Well, moving on, talking about things that are productions and coming out or have come out. Last year, we saw GenCon, the Critical Role campaign setting.
That was not last GenCon. We talked about this. It was 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. But the thing
is
really
that long ago?
Yeah.
That was our first GenCon that we went to together.
It doesn't seem like... I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like it's been that long ago.
It was 2017 because we got the book, we went to the signing, and we went to the live show, and we did not do that last year because reasons that I don't want to bring up on here.
But... Well, the thing is that it was... it's kind of the thing where a podcast and actual play got a book. This year, we've seen Acquisitions Incorporated get a book released as well for D&D. Now, of course, the GM is directly tied to the product.
Well, and I mean, honestly, not just that, but that was their first. It's the first podcast I ever listened to, but it was also like early on, the Dungeons and Dragons podcast stuff that came out. Actually, I would credit that podcast as the reason I podcast.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't think it started there. That didn't drive me. I want to do this, but it got me hooked up into Critical Hit, which that got me to where I wanted to podcast.
Nice.
So who's the GM for that? Is Chris Perkins the GM?
Chris
Perkins is the actual
GM.
GM.
So good. I honestly,
he's a good role player.
Season 1 is pretty solid, and then they come back for season 2, which they're not very long.
Yeah.
And it has Will Wheaton in it, along with Scott Kurtz and the guys from Penny Arcade. And Will Wheaton brings a ton to the table he's every bit of Will Wheaton, but in like not the overbearing Will Wheaton ways, because I find him a bit much sometimes, but he's none of that. He's just having fun at the table and being
I enjoy watching him role play.
And yeah, and he really worked on that backstory for that character. Have you listened to it, John?
No, I haven't. But Will Wheaton,
I didn't even know it was a podcast.
With his Titan's Grave series, watching him GM, he is amazing.
I got to get on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really
we
need
did
to
a-
watch a bunch of stuff
We
on
did
there.
a lot because I was a big Geek and Sundry fan before John and I met.
Okay.
So I introduced him to a lot of what drew me to the hobby in addition to him. So,
Yeah.
because gaming and stuff was... Will Wheaton is what introduced me, and Tabletop was what introduced me to board gaming. And now we have a collection of almost 400 games. So... We are nerds, but we're the best kind. We're the best kind.
Not only do you have a giant collection, but you know how many you have. I have zero idea how many I have.
Well, one time we were at, when we first combined our collection into the same shelves, we were at 108. We were wee little babies. Sweet summer children that had no idea what we were getting into. And now, we have to be... I don't remember exactly why I have that number in my head, but I'm pretty sure I counted up at least 350 one time.
Right on.
And I was like, well, anyway, I was going to do a game a day for a year, and that just... I'm going to wait for a leap year.
So the question you have here is, are we going to be in a new era of audio play podcast books? And I don't know. The thing is, Critical Role is enormous.
Yes, it is.
Enormous. And Acquisitions Incorporated has a backing that... most companies or most things don't.
Exactly.
But because of the open license for 5th edition, we may not see it directly from Wizards of the Coast, but it's something that could very easily be put up on Drive-Thru RPG. Well, it's whatever the D&D side of that is. I forget what it's called. DM's Guild. And they've put out a ton of other settings that they don't mention. So a lot of the Magic settings are already up and available.
Yeah.
And they're free. Most of them are free, and they're actually pretty solid. For being free, they're amazing, but they're pretty solid. I would pay money for those.
Well,
okay.
And I, just tossing this out, even if it's not books, there are podcasting has become a way for some people to become directly involved in actual plays, directly involved with publishing companies. Satine Phoenix got her stint working for the Wizards of the Coast.
I think she's doing social media or something for
Wizards. We also have, I believe it is not the Broadswords, but one of the all-female RPG groups.
Dungeons and Damsels or whatever it's
she's
called.
now picked up by Weave.
Okay.
She is now their social media, over.
Oh.
Yeah.
The Weave system?
The Weave
so
system.
Monocle Society?
Yes.
Okay.
She has been picked out, so anytime you see their stuff going out over Facebook, it's her.
Okay.
I mean, and in all honesty, the companies like that interaction. Even Wizards of the Coast, that's huge.
Yeah.
Every time that I've heard their people interact with anybody that's doing a podcast with their systems, they're very excited about it.
Yeah.
So even but for smaller companies, that's I'm sure even more important to them because it's it's essentially a sales option, and is very much advertising while not meaning to be. So I like that. I like that podcasting is translating into that. For some
exactly.
And see, we've seen it also in actual plays, not necessarily just podcasts.
Yeah, I forgot.
But Saving Throw show with Savage Worlds, they do the Wild Card show on Friday night, and once they left the Deadlands Reloaded setting campaign, because they did 5 seasons of that campaign, they stopped that, and then they switched over to the new one because Savage Worlds has releasing at this GenCon Savage Worlds Adventurers Edition, so it's which they're calling Suede. If you see that mentioned anywhere, that's what that's referring to. But Pinnacle Entertainment and Clint and Jody Black were part of kind of repping this new season of or this new campaign of East Texas University through Savage Worlds Adventures Edition, and they created edges which are a part of the Savage Worlds system, but they created character edges which are kind of like feats, I guess, in other systems, but they created specific edges to reveal in the actual play once the characters were faced with a situation where it would come to light.
Okay.
And the designer of the game worked with the GM of that game to do that and made them, and now they're available if you're a Patreon backer.
Right on.
And they're official edges for East Texas University. So, and it's semi-podcast related. They do take the files from that show and use them release them as podcasts as well.
Okay.
But that is, in my opinion, Saving Throw show is a pretty they're still a small company. I feel like somebody called them the PBS of RPGs, and I think that's what it is, because they're just like, we play for donations, and we do this because we love it.
And they do a lot of charity work.
They do they do an Alzheimer's charity. They do Extra Life. They do all, they're constantly trying to give back. But that's another really cool thing where a developer of a game and a system reached out to somebody running it and said, hey, I want to work with you and do something extra special for not only your campaign, but that we can release to the consumers. And it's kind of the same thing. And I think it's a smaller, because again, you're right, Critical Role is freaking huge.
Yeah.
And they never intended for that, but they got...
Well, they had good
marketing.
What's the guy that runs it?
Matt
Mercer.
Matt Mercer is...
well known.
Well, he does a good job.
Yeah.
And he has the charisma for it. And then, as silly as it sounds, the fact that they are on Geek and Sundry is I think, exactly the key to their success, because it gave them the exposure they needed. And,
true.
And that's really what you need: a good GM that can tell a good story, and you need exposure. Those are the three things that'll get anybody out there.
And so I was glad to see that with Saving Throw Show, because I honestly believe a lot of their DMs are hugely underrated because they're really good. I mean, the guy who does Wild Cards, John and I both are just like, this guy is ridiculous. And just his storytelling is great.
When you can, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've been in role playing for so long. When you can shock the heck out of me with your plot line, you're amazing.
Yeah.
And it's Jordan Kellerman, right?
Yeah.
He blows my mind. But one last one to touch on. I believe, and I might be wrong, Shields of Tomorrow, Sally Ride, they got their name.
Well, they at least got their picture. Yeah, the USS Sally Ride from Shield of Tomorrow also on. It was on Alpha, but it's now been uploaded to Geek and Sundry's YouTube page. But they're in the science book.
Well, and Modifius, that's their thing. Like they're happy to be involved.
And Modifius worked very closely, and they were in the chats for stuff. And that's another thing that happens on the Savage World show. The developers are in the chats talking to people. Modifius, Chris was in the chats talking to people, I believe, and worked with Eric to make sure that they were running the game right, because the show started, I don't even think the whole set was really out yet.
Yeah.
I think it was like right at the very beginning, maybe a little bit before, and so people couldn't even get the physical product yet. We had pre-ordered the board cube, so we might have had it, but I don't even think we had it yet.
I think we got it just afterwards, because I think we had some of the beta
because we didn't have the board cube the year that we went to GenCon, and it had just started. We didn't have it yet. So
yeah, you got it right after that because you brought it down when you came down in February.
I did. I brought it down in February.
I will say the other thing about Modifius, because I'm going to keep touching on them.
Feel free.
Is when I asked for stuff for Octon Cthulhu for our Cthulhu thing, they sent me high-res original art pieces so that we could use it. They were happy to work out anything. They've given us stuff to give away, although our listeners don't listen and don't want to get stuff they have been very supportive.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that they were supportive for something that was going to essentially rep their stuff, the little bits of Shield of Tomorrow, I have a huge problem with 3-hour shows. That's my issue. But the parts of Shields of Tomorrow that I've watched have been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So that's one I would like to go back to when I have 3 hours to sit down and watch a show.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I really like Shields Tomorrow, and I know that Modifius is happy to back.
I wish they would turn it into a podcast, because sometimes it's a lot easier to listen to something while you're driving, like on a long drive, because you're already engaged in something.
Yeah. So, and it did wonders for Critical Role when they made their podcast is what really kept me around.
Yeah,
because the podcast they got rid of a lot of the unnecessary banter.
So it still makes it a 3-hour show when you get to the longer ones, but it's only 3 hours instead of 5.5.
And the other thing is podcasts are easier to find on an app than YouTube is once you've watched part of it. They just have a better set up. I think YouTube didn't intend to be used like that, and that's why they're not like that. And I think that's the disconnect there. So it's unfortunate, because I think YouTube is a great place for that stuff too. So.
Sure. No, I am really excited at where we are, because I can, like, when people come into the game store and they're asking about podcasts or they're asking about RPGs in general, and they're like, well, all I've ever heard of is D&D, and I'm like, oh, well, let me tell you some things. And I can either recommend a podcast, I can recommend YouTube shows, and when I first got into gaming, those were not there. I mean, and I'm relatively new. I mean, I've only been really into tabletop gaming since 2014. Yeah. But even then, I mean, Critical Role started in 2015, and it's really been, and I think there were guys that were doing it before that. I didn't even know what Twitch was.
But Roxy, my podcast has been around since 2012.
I know.
And
I liked Cthulhu then. I'm surprised I never listened to it.
It's hard. It's so hard to promote podcasts. It is really difficult to get it in front of people.
Well, because,
without paying a ton of money for advertising.
iTunes, I happened upon the H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast, and that's what really, educated me about Lovecraft stories. I had heard of him, and I had a anthology, but I'd never listened to anybody really talk about... I had his, early stories anthology, so it's not even the necessarily good stuff. It's it's a way... but that podcast opened a whole world to me, and I tried to find some other things... but I didn't even consider that there would be gaming podcasts like that.
Yeah. And this is a great moment to go ahead and segue into this briefly, or not even briefly if necessary, but touching on the loss of Larry DiTillo and Greg Stafford this year. And this also touches on your podcast. I mean, Larry DiTillo is the one who wrote the Masks of Nyarlathotep, and he was amazing. I mean, I just want to touch this going down the list. I mean, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, he wrote for that.
Right.
He-Man and She-Ra, he wrote for that. He-Man, Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, Princess of Power, Centurions. I mean, all the Bionic Six, Captain Power, Roxy, the California Raisins.
Yeah.
Captain Power.
What?
Yes.
What did he do with the California Raisins?
He did the California Raisins show, 5 episodes he wrote for it.
Yeah.
Man,
he wrote so much.
Yeah. Conan the Adventurer, Babylon 5, Beast Wars, Transformers. And you just go down this list of all these great things that he did in that. And then you add to the fact that he also used to write for games. And Masks of Nyarlathotep is an Origins Award winner and considered by many to be the greatest RPG campaign ever written.
Having run it, I mean, our podcast is called Masks of Nyarlathotep for a reason.
Yeah.
Mostly that reason is because I didn't think through what we do after we were done with it. But it was such a solid and well-researched, well-thought-out, well-dealt with, but then gave you 6 locations to deal with over a span of time. It's really well done.
Yeah.
It's one of the few adventures I've read that I haven't gone, well, why did they put this here? They work really hard at giving you the things in the right order so you can handle it correctly. And then the handouts are just, there's so many handouts in that game.
And didn't a company this year put out a...
No, there's a really nice one for the, I think it's for the 7th edition.
So they put out a new 7th edition, but there's also another company called something Stone. It has to do with Stone that put out a companion that goes even deeper.
Handouts.
Well, it goes even deeper into the locations and the time frames and gives you more side quests. And they had been doing it online for a long time, and they finally published it through a Kickstarter, which I backed.
I'm not gonna lie, I would love to. Even though I've listened to your show through because I know that there was stuff that you guys didn't even get to.
Much.
I would love to run through that campaign.
Well,
I think that would be super fun.
Run very differently with a different group of people too. We wouldn't have a murderous professor that everybody was afraid of the whole time.
Yeah. Or maybe.
Yeah. But
you never know.
You never know.
Massive salute to Larry.
Yeah.
We are... he's definitely one of the names this year that has hit hard as far as a loss in the entire community. Greg Stafford as well.
Yeah. And so one of the things I recognized when Gary Gygax passed is that there's a founding that happened in the 70s and 80s, and those people, all of those writers, we're going to see them start to go. They were in their 40s or 50s when that started, and now they're much older. And it's unfortunate because they're a core of what we have today, but it also the industry has changed so much.
Oh God, yes.
I mean,
but these are like the dads of the industry.
Right.
They put out the work, and they are the people we look up to. You're a little bit scared of what they're going to say if you put a beer in their hand,
right?
But otherwise, it's kind of like my own dad. You're gonna be a little bit. What are you going to say now? But these are the equivalent for us.
Yeah, definitely. It is always sad when you have somebody that's a creator that gave us so much that we lose.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, it's just inevitable that this is going to keep happening, especially since there was such a cluster of people that are very recognizable all at once that started within a couple of,
right.
I mean, within a decade, we went from nothing to Dungeons and Dragons and a bunch of other games.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't any good, but
True.
But they're also very indicative of the time, which is the same way I view movies. Like stuff from the '60s in movies is tough to watch sometimes because their mindset about making this thing is different than what we would have now, and I think that's different.
Pacing, the way it's filmed. Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's be going on from here.
Yeah.
We have the end of Geek and Sundry's Alpha. And the beginning of the Critical Role specific Twitch stream. So
has that happened since?
That was this
last GenCon? I thought they already had their channel last.
They
GenCon.
announced it right after last GenCon.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that
tells you how far behind that we haven't watched. We haven't kept up with Critical Role in probably at least that long.
Yeah. But they made that announcement, and it was just one of those things where
those were not. Well,
no,
those were not.
Yeah,
you bring them up at the same time, but Critical Role announced their split off because of, and it was an amicable split between.
Yeah,
them.
We should touch on that. This was an amicable split, and one did not necessarily cause the other. There are people out there that do believe that.
I kind of am in that camp. I kind of think that took a lot of because I really think what catapulted Geek and Sundry's RPG streams was the fact that they had Critical Role.
Well, and whether I don't know that I agree that it was the thing, but when you're looking at something and you're like, this isn't doing exactly what we wanted, and then also that happens, like, well, I mean, is it still the direction we want?
Well, and I think a lot of that
change is
sure
important, but I just don't know.
I think a lot of that. I don't think Critical Role may have ever left Geek and Sundry if Geek and Sundry was not. I don't know. This is my opinion. Is that I think as soon as Legendary bought all that stuff, because they bought Nerdist and Geek and Sundry, I think that was kind of the sign. And then that they were the ones who pushed the Alpha thing, and I think that was a dumb move. It was again. It's that idea of taking it's like what YouTube is doing now.
Yeah.
Where it's like we have been a notoriously free platform, but now for $5.99 per user per channel you want to subscribe to, you can now subscribe and get premium content, and it's like no.
Well, and also keep in mind that it's a very similar problem to what we saw with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro.
Yeah.
Hasbro came in and said, "Well, you have to be a moneymaker." And so we saw Dungeons and Dragons go into a new edition, which has a very large majority of people that are very loud about how bad 4th edition was. And what your feelings about 4th edition or not, it was driven by sales.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted. And then they took a whole new approach to 5th edition and were like, this is not about sales, even though it still really is, because every company's about sales.
Sure.
But they aren't hammering us with books. They're hammering us with stories that happen to be in books, which is a different mindset, and I like it. I wish we would get setting guides, but I still like
I get what
you're
saying, because Pathfinder hammered with books.
Oh my, so many books.
So many books that really didn't. I mean, it provides other content, but when you have to have 6 or 7 books stacked on your game table just to play one of their modules,
just one character.
Oh, true.
Yeah, when you have to have your ultimate NPCs and your advanced player guide and your advanced class guide and your advanced race guide, it's like, holy crap.
Well, and
I don't want this.
When they announced Pathfinder 2.0, I walked into our local game store, and there was just a stack of first edition books that they were like, well, these are all on discount now. And it's because stores were heavily encouraged to invest in Pathfinder.
Sure.
Because
of Pathfinder Society.
And it's a very dangerous back and forth in that situation. Pathfinder did what they did with 3rd edition and 4th edition and ramped it up even higher, which I didn't think they could. But boy, did they.
With the subscription service, but the subscription service also became the enemy of the game store.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I kind of don't like D&D Beyond. As useful as it is, I feel like that is a thing that is against the local game store because, as you told me the other night, because I've never looked at D&D Beyond past like their initial like alpha version that they released that was you could do some stuff with, but if the books are going to cost you retail value of a hardcover, and it can all be in my app or it can all be on my iPad, why would I ever want to buy a book? I mean,
and the flip side to that is if your digital tools cost the exact same as my book that I already want and I already buy because I'm of that generation of gamer. I like PDFs. I will take a PDF any day of any game.
Oh, yeah.
But the first time I read through a book, I want it in hardcover so I can flip through it and get a feel for the book so that when I'm like, well, where was that? I can find it because I have an idea of where it is.
Yeah, and
I don't have that ability with PDFs.
No, and I get that.
Like there are two issues on both sides of that, where the physical copies are expensive, and you're going to take away from those sales by just offering it through the digital copies. But at the same time, the digital copies are so expensive.
Sure.
I subscribed to the character builder for years for 4th edition, and I'd still be subscribed today if I could, because I would still play that, and I'm not grandfathered in because they still have it available, and they just won't let me sign up. Listen, I tried. I really tried, and they were like, well, we can't really do it. It wasn't attached to your account. I'm like,
Well, mentioning new editions and everything coming our way, we got Shadowrun 6th edition. That's right, 6th edition? Yes.
Yeah.
6th edition coming at GenCon, as well as Cyberpunk Red, which will be the first new edition of that game in, I think, 11 years.
So here's the thing with Shadowrun.
Yeah.
I started playing in 4th edition. I know that there are problems with 4th edition. I did not notice them. However, gamers are going to be gamers, and they're going to power game, and 4th edition, I guess, had a lot of problems with that. I then was like, well, the new edition is 5th edition, and this was a few months ago. I'll go ahead and buy the base book for that. And no joke, it arrived, and I opened my phone, and announced on Facebook was 6th edition is coming.
Yes.
The day I got the book, I was so angry. I understand that new editions need to come out to solidify rules and to do whatever they're going to do. That's not a problem. What is a problem? What for me is a problem is that 4th edition did not come out that long ago, and rapid edition change, it may not be intentionally, but it feels very much like a money grab.
Yeah, I think talking about rule changes, I mean, I'm going to toss out a company we don't even rep or play for myself, but Games Workshop. All the times that they throw out new rules and new books and everything. I'm sorry, and the times that they make sure that you cannot play certain figurines.
Yeah, well, so like I got into Warhammer Fantasy. Love the idea of Warhammer Fantasy.
Oh yeah,
but it is expensive to get those plastic figures. And now, like, they've changed to 3 different new rule sets already since I started playing, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to. Star Wars did the same thing. X-Wing. I have yet to pick up the new stuff. I will play with my old ships. I don't care. Like, I understand it's broken for tournament play, and I understand that the new system is really way better. It really is. I don't care. I want my X-Wings to shoot down some TIE fighters, and I want to enjoy it. And I'm not a competitive player like that.
Yeah.
In that way.
Now, other things that are coming, that Shadowrun, I'm excited. We did get the box set. I have mixed feelings on the box set.
Yeah, there were some issues in that box set.
Yeah, we did have some problems with it.
We tried to run it, and I liked the rules. Mm-hmm. I liked, to some extent, the scenario. But there was some obvious proofing that was not done.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so I'm still excited for the new Shadowrun, but
As long as it's proofed, I'm fine with that.
I'm not going to pick it up immediately. I want to hear from the community if it meets our standards.
And I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with Cyberpunk Red.
Yeah.
But it probably falls within a wheelhouse I want to get into, so I'll look for that at GenCon.
Well, Cyberpunk Red, I do definitely want to point out, is the Pondsmith family, and both the son and father of that company it's a African-American owned RPG
excellent.
company. So I do have a lot of support for them. But that said, I know I have to touch on just the issues that people have with this game in this day and age, just to toss it out there. I mean, so Shadowrun has this concept built into it that is to ensure level gaming that the more you add to your body, the less human you are.
Right.
The problem with that is that we are in a day and age where people are doing that in real life and telling them that they're less human. It's not good. When there are people with doing bionic eye implants, cochlear implants, all sorts of add-ons to musculature, different kind of like nerve treatments that are major things. It's improper for us to really sit here and say that you are less human.
Right. Absolutely.
And with Cyberpunk Red, Pondsmith is awesome. I'm going to say that I like him as a writer. Some of the people that worked for him, I have my own issues with, but big deal. Their thing is that if you get enough tech implants in your body, you go insane. So it's another balancing mechanism.
Sure.
But I mean there's actually a police agency that specifically deals with people who go cyber. I think it's called cyber rage or cyber mad.
Okay.
And so
balancing issues and stories about what machines do to your body are interesting, but it's a tough area to really touch on without being very potentially insensitive to what other people are doing.
And at the same time, one last thing I want to say on this: these are Cyberpunk is to me the equivalent of Black Mirror. This is not a universe you really want to live in. This is a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
I mean, these are not places that. And this is something that I think it was. I'm trying to remember. He put out a game that was recently Capers.
Craig Campbell?
Yeah, Craig Campbell of Nerdburger Games. He says, I love my systems, but I would never want to live in them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a really eye-opening experience to me because I've always been like, we play these games for fantasy. We play these games because they're better than where we live. But not always. I don't think any of us want to be in Call of Cthulhu.
I was going to say, nobody wants to live in Call of Cthulhu or any kind of setting like that. I mean, I guess maybe some people do.
You say that, but sometimes...
You feel like we're already there?
When especially looking at Shadowrun, I don't want to get super political, but like looking at the changes in environment, the food shortages, the very thorough social splits, there are aspects of that yes, we're ramping it up from where we're at now, but dealing with that, I've always found gaming to be very therapeutic. And there are a lot of therapeutic things in dealing with a world that's worse than ours, and at least we're not there.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, as much as I agree, a lot of, like, let's just be honest, if we were all playing Dungeons & Dragons and we lived there, it would be terrible. There would be literal poop in the streets, and I'm not dealing with that.
That is true. You are 100% correct.
We don't deal with the dirty parts of Dungeons & Dragons, but that's a reality. But we fantasize, we give it this fantasy thing.
Yeah.
And we don't deal with that. And a lot of the stuff in Cyberpunk is all this bad stuff exists, and you still are able to push forward and succeed sometimes.
Yeah.
So Call of Cthulhu is a whole other thing. It's about existential horror.
Yeah.
Really is all that game is about, and I like telling stories in that. Mostly because I hate existential horror, so I get to inflict it on people.
So we got 2 more points here, so let's go ahead, or 3 if we count one. But Sean Astin's Grimmer Space campaign setting hit heavy.
I don't know what it is. I have not looked into it because I didn't want to, not because I'm unhappy with any of it. I think it's great. What I would rather see is a lot more celebrities who are gaming back stuff. If Vin Diesel was like, "This is my game setting," I would buy that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I would get behind it because because they could hire screenwriters and people that could do things that we don't have necessarily in gaming right now.
Yep.
Right.
So, and the fact that Sean Astin is willing to do this is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, because John always calls it Sean Astin's Grimmer Space, but he didn't actually write any part of it, right?
I
thought he was part of the development team, but maybe not necessarily. But I'm not sure.
Well, it's so the original writer was Richard Pelt, I believe, which I'm trying to remember, but goodness, you kind of caught me off guard.
I'm sorry.
No. But the thing is that
I knew he was really
setting
behind
itself is developed by Sean Astin. I don't know if he's the writer, but it is.
Okay.
He is the developer. He is the powerhouse behind.
All I know
I
is,
would guess that he had some ideas, just like all of us do as gamers.
Yeah.
And then got people to put it together.
That's probably true.
Which doesn't negate what he's done. It just it frames it. He put a frame out and people built on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
All I know is Will Wheaton and Sean Astin were some of my earliest crushes. And so the fact that they're still involved in things that I'm enjoying makes it all worth it.
I'm not judging you at all.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
So you were really into Rudy? Did you watch Rudy
No,
a lot?
Goonies. Mikey Walsh.
I know. I
liked Rudy. Rudy made me cry.
He makes everybody cry.
Rudy is a crier.
Yeah.
Rudy's a cry jerker.
But this is actually.
I don't know if that's an appropriate phrase. That might refer to something completely different.
But Grimmer Space touches on something that I definitely think is something that a lot of us in the game community are thinking about, and that is Grimmer Space is a campaign setting for Starfinder. So it is not. It is not its own thing. It is.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
It is a dark, futuristic look at Starfinder in his own way.
Okay.
Which I think is cool that there's going to be a campaign setting outside the core setting for that game.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great.
Right, because that's one of my huge issues with Pathfinder.
Mm-hmm.
I hate having to play in that world all the time.
Yeah.
And everything they released was Galarian. Galarian. And I understand.
So, I get what you're saying. It took me 4 years before I played in a published world when I started playing.
Yeah.
We never played in published worlds.
Yeah.
So, I get what you're saying, but, to me, Pathfinder's a tool set, and I can pick and choose, even from their own setting books.
Right.
I can pick and choose the things I want, and I will yank those right out. So I get what you're saying, but to me, when they were like, we're going to play in the Forgotten Realms, I'm like, well, who wrote that? And they're like, this dude named Richard Baker, and I'm like, who? Is he somebody did he used to game here? No, he wrote this book. And then that was my first exposure to Forgotten Realms, and it took me a long time.
Wasn't Forgotten Realms?
No, Richard Baker is.
You're thinking Keith Baker for Eberron.
Keith Baker it's Richard Greenwood.
Ed Greenwood.
I've met the man. You would think I would know his name.
I was like, wait a second, wasn't Forgotten Realms Ed Greenwood?
Edward. I feel really bad.
Ed Wood?
No.
And it was Ed Wood. It was Johnny Depp. It's Ed Wood.
What's really bad is I met Ed Greenwood at a book meet and greet thing for press at GenCon.
Nice.
But also R.A. Salvatore was there.
Nice.
And everybody was talking to R.A. Salvatore. And Ed Greenwood was just sitting in the back. He's like, it happens every time.
Oh, man.
But no, he was like this jovial, old, bearded man.
Yeah, he's like
he was great.
He kind of has like a Santa Claus face.
Yes,
he's got the white beard with the...
Matt Mercer did a game together.
That's awesome.
Other people, it's called Open Legends?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And actually, the guy that we were watching play video games, Dare Taffy, he was on one of their web shows on Geek and Sundry for Open Legends.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, because he's a gamer too.
So, my point was
yeah, sorry.
I have no problem taking rules as a tool set.
Yeah.
And I like writing my own stories around them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that's harder to do.
I guess
in Pathfinder.
I guess I felt like I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, no. All I was going to say is so. In the Dungeons & Dragons books, they are you have again your player's guide, dungeon master guide, monster manual, but they really aren't setting specific. There's stuff in there that is setting specific. Like depending on what edition you're looking at, it'll be either geared towards Forgotten Realms or it'll be geared towards
Greyhawk.
Greyhawk.
Yeah.
but it's really not too heavy on that, so it's really easy to pull from.
Yeah.
Pathfinder is like all-encompassing with the Galarian. Like Galarian as a setting guide is in the Pathfinder book. That's why it's so massive.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with that. One, I don't want to play Pathfinder.
Yeah.
I got over my
agree with that.
my Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 days a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's just not. I don't want to crunch everything. It's just not fun for me anymore.
I'm kind of there right now. I expect I will one day want to go back to the dungeons.
Sure.
But for now, I'm enjoying my stories.
I enjoy the Tomb of Annihilation campaign that we're in. We don't get to play it very often, and I don't know if it might be soft canceled, but it was fun.
Yeah.
But we had a good group of people. We have had a problem with necessarily good groups of people. Mm-hmm. And so when we played Pathfinder, number one, we always played an AP.
Oh, okay.
We never homebrewed. I can't think of a single Pathfinder game that we played that was homebrewed. Yeah. It was always an AP. And they were always ridiculously long. As fun as the ones that we played were, some of them, it was like... I guess it was nice to build a character concept because I had all this lore to draw from, but I don't know. I was like, I'm tired of this world.
Yeah.
I'm tired of just this kind of stuff. I kind of want to do my own thing, which is why I like a lot of the games that we're doing now that are a lot more cinematic. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not bound by such hard, and I know they don't have to be hardline rules, but it feels like they are sometimes. Like, well, you can't do that. You can't climb.
It's a lot of crunch. It's a lot of crunch, and
I'm not here for it anymore.
Yeah, give me the slurry.
Give me a slurry.
But here's the kind of point that I'm drawing out on this one is that Grimmer Space was designed for Starfinder.
Yeah. We
also have a lot of 5th edition games coming out that are alternative uses. Mm-hmm. There's a Spies game. Mm-hmm. There's now a Cyberpunk game. I think it's Carbon 2185 or something like that.
Yeah.
The Ultra Modern Guide has come back out for 5th edition D&D, and there are other companies. Even Nerdburger Games was talking about releasing a game for 5th edition.
Well, and that ties right back into Critical Role and Acquisitions Incorporated. That finally, mm-hmm. Dungeons & Dragons went back to their open gaming license because it was a very smart thing they did in 3rd edition. Mm-hmm. It gave us the birth of companies like Green Ronin.
Yes.
And without that, I mean, think about what gaming would look like now without Green Ronin.
Green Ronin, Mongoose Publishing.
Mongoose, yeah. Mongoose put up a fantastic module set in Constantinople as the Turks are coming to destroy it. Mm-hmm. And it's not about fighting anybody; it's about getting out alive. Yeah, which was just amazing.
Yep, Kesner and Company put out their setting.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot of stuff, and some of it wasn't great. Yeah. But we got a lot of stuff that was really good.
And I think that the campaign settings were great. Mm-hmm. But when I started seeing other games coming over and porting to the OGL, that was, for me, one of the clarion calls of that area of role-playing coming to an end.
Well, Call of Cthulhu did it.
Yeah.
It was not a great system.
Oriental Adventures.
Same thing.
Yeah.
We also saw Big Eye Smallmouth did it.
Yep.
What was the other one I was just thinking about?
Star Wars jumped in.
Yeah.
You go down this list of all these things that were like, we're going to go D20 system, licensed.
Oh, the Monty Cook's World of Darkness. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, God, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, it was an interesting take.
But I'm hopeful that we are in an age right now where these actions of everybody porting to 5th edition won't be a downfall.
Yeah.
That we're still going to see a strong indie scene. We're still going to see a strong desire for people to sit at tables again. Mm-hmm. People left the tables to go to video games for a while because video games could do something visually that we thought our games couldn't.
Right.
But now people are returning. RPGs are in a huge renaissance. We're getting talked about on every news program, mm-hmm. and even
and not about cults and kids killing themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And we're part of Stranger Things. I mean, how cool is that?
Right. And I think 5th edition. I think Wizards leads the market in a lot of weird ways. But I think that having something like Stranger Things is really important too. Without Stranger Things, I don't think we see this resurgence. And I know that sounds weird, but think about it. Like 3 years ago, everybody knew about D&D, but nobody was really ready to play it that same way that weren't already involved in a lot of ways. Yeah. And it gave people my age, our age, I guess, a reason to come back. Exactly. To remember all the fun they had as kids. And our generation has this tendency to look back and be nostalgic, and I think it's allowing us to do things that we can't or that we couldn't before. So 5th edition is just, with as streamlined as it is super solid, but it also acts as a gateway to a lot of other stuff that I think is great. And their open gaming license, when they announced the GM's Guild, that I knew that was going to be pretty big. And I think it's fantastic that they did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, wrapping up the show, I really want to ask everybody, what are you looking forward to at GenCon this year? We're leaving out in a week. We're going to be
less than that. We're leaving out on Tuesday.
Yeah. And we are going to be running a awesome campaign setting. We're doing the Star Trek.
Actually, do you want me to release this Monday?
Yeah.
Okay, then go ahead, Matt. Pimp out the show pimp out the stuff we're doing.
So what we're doing is we're running for a couple of years. We ran Call of Cthulhu and multi-table modules. There's a great module by Paul Fricker called Gatsby and the Great Race for Call of Cthulhu. Has nothing to do with the Great Race of Yith. Just a little confusing there, but it's set in the 1920s. It's very solid, but it can run as a single table, but it runs better as multiple tables playing the same game at the same time and interacting with each other. And it's very interesting how they did it. And I'm not going to reveal too much because it's a really good game. We wrote our own, which we have not published, and we can't because of Chaosium's current licensing rules. And I don't blame them. Yeah. You got to protect your stuff. It's fine. If given half a chance to publish it, it will go right up on your Drive-Thru RPG, though. So in the light of those two, we've decided, I cajoled a bunch of people into doing this with me. We're running a Star Trek Adventures game Thursday and Friday at GenCon. It is already sold out. It's sold out like day one, but I always have people cancel. Always, always, always. And there's always spots open in the game. So if you have generic tickets, stop by. You'll find it under Seed of Destruction. Because I typed it wrong. It should be Seeds of Destruction, plural, but whatever. But basically, we're going to have 8 tables all running the same story at the same time. They will be interacting. I have a feeling that we'll end up with players getting up from one table and completely going to another table because all of the doctors want to be in one place at the same time. I'm 100% for that. I think that's a fantastic idea. It should be complicated and convoluted, but that is the best way to run these big things.
As long as you're there to keep us all
Lord Inquisitor.
Flying right.
Yeah,
Lord Commander.
Lord Commander. I didn't spend 6 weeks in Commander School to be the Lord Inquisitor.
That's right.
But Matt, what are you looking for?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to running this.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to interacting with Modifius on a con level that I haven't before. Normally, they're like, "Come interview us," and I go and I interview, and they're great. This will be different. Beyond that, I would like to just see things in the exhibit hall. That is what I spend my time doing. I don't go and pay for a lot of other events, mostly because I have left my schedule open in the past so I could do other things. Yeah. Every year I sit down and play demos of games, and every year I walk away with a game I wouldn't have known about beforehand. Last year we got Fleecing Olympus. I don't remember the name of the game company it was put out by, but basically Zeus has stepped down as leader of the gods, and so all the other gods are trying to fleece Olympus for his position.
Nice.
And it's very interesting. We sat down, learned it. I thought it was great. I was like, well, I want to buy it. And the guy was like, well, great. I did all of the art, and here's the guy that wrote the game. We can sign your copy.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And I was like, please do. You go right ahead. So
Passport Game Studios.
Yeah. They put out some decent games. They're small. They're a smaller name.
We carry some of their stuff at the shop.
But they have quality product, and the art on it was fantastic. The gameplay was fun. Was it last year I got Bears? I don't remember. Barbarians. Barbarians.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
But every year I find something new to play. I always stop by the Floodgate Games booth. Not only is the guy that runs it super, super nice, but he always puts out good games. Sagrada, which you guys have,
Floodgate
is their big kind of big name game. But honestly, I've not played a game of theirs that I didn't go, this was fun. So they just put out Bad Maps and News at 11 last year, and another game that they put on Kickstarter, like 1, 2, 3, like right in a row. But everything that I've played of theirs has been enjoyable, even when it's not necessarily my thing.
Yeah.
So Floodgate, I always suggest seeing Floodgate.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, I looked up Passport, and Passport is actually, apparently they do something, they maybe created, they have Takedo listed, which is odd to me because I know it's a FunForge game.
Yeah.
But maybe FunForge is I don't know. But Passport.
A lot of game stores, companies have been shifting a lot.
Yeah. They also did Kingsport Festival.
Yep. That sounds right.
So we do carry a couple on our shelves right over here.
Yeah. So Roxy, what are you looking forward to at GenCon this year?
You know, I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought. I mean, doing the game I think is going to be fun. I will say it's
confidence.
I'm very nervous. I mean, at best I've GM'd once. So it's just a little nerve-wracking to jump into it doing it at a con. I know other people have done that, and I know that it's not necessarily something that, you know, is going to just send me into a complete panic attack. But I'll be honest, I'd be lying if I wasn't saying I was a bit
apprehensive
about it, just because I've never done it before. And I've seen some pretty DB people play games at cons. And I really hope I don't have any DBs. So if you're listening to this and you're going to be playing and you're at my table, please do not. Can I say douchebag at PG-13?
Yeah.
Don't be a douchebag.
So, yes, I absolutely can. The other thing I'm excited about our games for is we met a guy years ago, podcast related, went out to a thing for Frog Pants Studios, out to Salt Lake City. He was going to go out there too, but needed a ride. So he came down from Michigan. We rode out there together. We hung out all weekend. We came back together. Haven't seen him since. He was like, I'm going to play some Star Trek at GenCon. It's my first year going in a long time. Signed up for our game. So I'm looking forward to seeing Jason. And that I was like, I think the people that wrote that are really smart. That's the one I wrote. So hopefully it goes well. But yeah, no, you said something.
I did. I said a lot of words.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And
but
things.
yeah, it should be a good game, and you'll do fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that because I think it'll be cool. Because I don't know if I've talked about it a lot on here, but Star Trek Adventures is one of my favorites. But and I haven't really even gotten to play it that much.
Yeah.
But I was part of the living play test. My name is in the core book. That makes me feel good.
Fancy.
Yeah. John should be in there, but he forgot to submit the form.
Yeah, that's my bad.
But I loved being a crew member of the USS Bellerophon, and the property has only gotten better with all the stuff that they keep adding to it.
Yeah.
I'm pushing it hard at our store.
Plus, I hear there's rumors that you're going to be on a new podcast, you and John, and maybe me.
There's
always crazy rumors.
There's always crazy rumors
about something like the USS Serenitis.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, you never know. I really have to watch my mouth because there was something that reminded me of something else that I saw one time, and I'm not going to badmouth somebody else's game table here. So
that's all good.
But no, I'm kind of just I'm actually a little excited for the Wild Cards live show. So the one that I mentioned, the Savage World show where they're doing East Texas University, they're doing a canonical one-off on Saturday, I think, in one of the hotel's ballrooms. And I am looking forward to that. So cool. I've been to one, and I actually am really looking forward to it, to just being in a hotel room or in a hotel ballroom, because I don't think we've ever talked about it, but literally the Critical Role live show at the Old Murat, beautiful theater. I never want to go to a show there again. At least not one with nerds, because it is so noisy.
Yeah.
Nobody could sit down. I was like, sit in your seats and shut up. I'm trying to listen to people talk. There's no loud music.
Yeah.
There's no loud anything else.
The seating is probably about 50 years old and creaks. So every time somebody gets up
And
or gets
slams.
down, oh yeah, and
it was miserable. And no,
So
every
creak,
second,
creak, slam, creak, slam. Excuse me, coughs.
And
Arms over the head for a lot of geeky guys who aren't wearing
deodorant. Yeah, I hate perpetuating the stereotype, but holy crumbs, you people, put some deodorant on. Axe doesn't count. Put something on so people can breathe. If you're going to lift up your arms and just sit there and watch the show because it's comfortable, amen, I get it. Put something on before you get to the show. But no, it was just so loud. It was so crowded. The bathrooms are on the bottom level. We had to sit on the top floor. The seats are not accommodating to someone of my wit. And and so, but thankfully there was just a regular like kitchen chair just sat up on the top level of the floor we were on. I just sat that thing on the stairs next to my husband.
Yep.
and once I did that, it was fine. But the noise was miserable. The acoustics in that place are probably beautiful, but if people are getting up literally 2 or 3 people every minute, you can't hear anything. So Critical Role, I love you guys, and I know that you have to have an arena or whatever now because there's just so many ridiculous amounts of people who listen to you. But I would rather go to a hotel ballroom and a small level show with very approachable cast members.
Oh, it'll still be packed to the gills, don't you worry.
What, the ballroom?
Yeah.
It probably will be.
Their show's not sold out yet, though, which gives me hope that it'll be a little better. But I mean, I'll sit in the back. I'm too starstruck, even by real people sometimes, that I'm like I've met YouTubers, and they're not big YouTubers, but I've watched them on TV for so long that like when I met them, I was like, oh my God, I felt sick. I was like, I'm just going to pass out.
I met Will Wheaton at GenCon.
Did you? Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah. No, and the YouTubers that I saw, they actually came over and were like, when were you going to give me a hug? I saw you come in.
Yeah,
and I was
thought
like,
it was cool. They
I was
knew
like,
ya.
oh my gosh, she actually knows my face. I'm not just a commenter. So, but anyway, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to our stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing RPGs played and playing them. I miss that. We haven't gotten to do it very often. We've done some stuff this week since Matt's been here, but I want to play more games, and I haven't been able to. So,
yeah. Well, as for me, I just want to walk around and I want to see what all's coming. Obviously, I am excited for Cyberpunk Red and for Shadowrun. Even with the problematic parts of the games, they are still amazing games, and my hope is, as always, that they will fix the issues, that they will find ways to work with them. They fixed the issue of cyber combat. I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but they made cyber actions the same as player actions, and so that has fixed massive things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't have to sit here for 20 minutes while the freaking Decker does 35 things.
Yeah.
I didn't have 35 passes. I had 3. And I think it was you that had all the passes the last game we played.
Listen.
Yep.
Wait, no.
Listen.
No, I've listened, and I'm...
Listen, Linda.
You know what, Karen? Leave it.
But other than that, probably the thing I am most excited about and curious about is a game called Namiji, coming out by Funforge. And it is a new game in the style of Takedo.
Is it a new game or was it an expansion for
It is
Takedo?
a new game.
Okay.
And
I love me some Takedo.
That's right. I get Takedo and Takanoko confused.
Yeah.
Have you played Takedo?
I have not. I own it. It was something Johnny Brown owned when he passed, and I inherited
it?
Yeah.
We should play it. It's competitive, but it's super chill, and we have the soundtrack.
It's the one where you go to the
You do the
Blossom
road.
Festival, right? Yeah. We're on the same page.
Yeah, it's the Takedo Road. So,
and you're traveling.
but yeah, there
down.
are festivals. We have the festival expansion too.
Beautiful game. But I think it's a good point to end on. A happy, upbeat moment. And
Sure.
If you're at GenCon, please come and find us. Roxy and I will probably be in our Passion Nerdly shirts with
For the most part,
Nerds Domain stuff.
We are going to a Calliope Games party on Thursday night. Mm-hmm. But we'll be repping my store. We'll be repping the store I work for there.
Yeah.
So, but I hope to have a freshly, mostly shaved head by the time we go, so you'll at least if you
Like all of it?
No,
Okay.
mostly.
Yeah,
I'm gonna shave the sides all down.
Me too.
And so I'm tired of having hair. I live in Satan's taint, apparently. So
we'll be
hot
running Star Trek Adventures on Thursday and Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And we're sold out, right?
Yeah, in convention room in the ICC 145, which is right by the dealer's hall.
We're right in the smack dab middle of everything.
Yeah.
So come see us.
So if you want to show up at 10 a.m. and hope to get in, grab some generic tickets. We might be able to get you in.
I'll sign boobs if I'm a good GM.
Yeah.
Just saying, if somebody wants me to do that, it'll happen.
It's going to get real awkward and you have to sign around all my hair.
Connect the dots. All right. Later,
I'll
guys.
Just see ya.
Fast Moving Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.